You're listening to this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment. It would greatly benefit the show.
Welcome to Movie Baiters with the Farx brothers. I'm Kyle.
I'm Kirk.
I'm Nick.
And we are interviewing someone we have never met before today. Can I explain that how Barry Andersson is? You have two S's in your name, right?
I do, yes.
Is Barry short for something?
Nope, that is just a original name. My parents like the name, and I have a common last name, a less common first name, and
Okay. Well, is there really two S's in your last name, or is that a staged version of your name?
it's a stage version of my name.
It makes you easier to find because I thought of that when I was doing the research. It's like, oh,
When I published my book, there's a million Barry Andersons, but I felt I was too old to officially change a name, and so then I came up with the idea of hey, my ancestors had two S's. I'll just bring it back.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And then what's funny is people who've known me my whole life were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've been spelling your name wrong all these years." And
Not really.
no, not really.
we have a stand-up comic friend who's been on the show, and because he has a W-2 job he has a PhD for, he changed his name, but only by one letter as well, and now he mispronounces it.
Oh, that's why you mispronounced the name that I'm thinking of.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Dedenne is
I'm
not
like,
how you
what the
pronounce
fuck is
that.
Kyle doing that for?
no, that's the stage version of his. And there's other people that comics that I'm friends with where I know their original name, and now they're Jeff Paul is not his name, for example.
We live in a weird industry where you may or may not have one name for this, one name for that. So
Well, we're all brothers with the same last name,
Yeah,
Farx.
Farx.
See, it's good you're off camera, so when you do those little things, people can't see them. He insists on being off camera.
The people watching would already know that that's.
you just gotta get like a fence, so you just see your eyes, but you don't see the
Yeah,
rest
like
of you.
Wilson.
You
Wilson.
participate.
Yeah.
Wilson.
And then I'll just do a lot more. The first question we always ask people, because they're multi-hyphenates like yourself, which of your multi-hyphenates do you like? Which one is the most important to you?
Directing.
Directing, and then writer, DP, or producer?
Probably producer.
Why? I'm surprised I resent having to put producer over anything because it's so much more work than the things I like doing for the art.
If I'm going to be producing something, it's meaning that there's some sort of drive to get that story told or put together something. So then in the producing roles, I can find people I think who are talented, put the right team together, and then it's a different position in storytelling than when you're a director, but it's still kind of that you're trying to bring something into existence. And anybody who creates for a living knows that the creation of something is basically hell. You're dragging it, to get it to come to life. And if you've ever worked on a project with a bad producer, you know just how awful that is. So it's my little way of, the people that I think have talent that I think are appropriate for a job. If I'm producing that, it's fun to give them hey, I got your back because I know the position that you're in. So that's why I would say producer second. I always say I'm not a writer. I do write, but it's not my art form. And I would much rather work with other writers, so I don't spend as much time developing that. And I love being a DP and finding the way to craft and move the camera and find the lighting. But because I think I'm wired for the storytelling of the human drama, that I get more wrapped up in seeing, was that right? As opposed to ooh, I need a little bit more fill on that side, or, I need that in the background. I get sucked in by the storytelling of it. So I like doing that, but if I had to rank them, I'd say director, producer, DP, writer.
Your supportive and caring mother, how do you describe the role of... Why'd you laugh at that?
Why such a pivot? That seems like a strange thing to
missed
pivot.
earlier when we talked about...
Yeah, you can't talk to
We
me about
have
it after.
pre-interviews with the guests, brother.
That's preamble that we did not get on record.
What? It's gonna be seeded into the
Okay.
question I ask. You'll see.
Yeah, that's why I scoffed
This
or
was
laughed.
good.
Yeah.
Do you think this will end up as a clip?
Nah, maybe. See what happens.
I don't even remember the question.
Your mother, your
When
caring
you
mother.
describe the job of directing to her, where it starts and where it ends and what it encompasses, I'm interested to hear you describe the job of director and contrast it with job of producer.
I mean, I don't think there's one specific path for either of them. So I'll talk about, in this case, my because like there's directing when you are finding the project, kind of almost like as a producer where you're, you hear about something and you're advocating for it and you're trying to show that you're right for it, versus someone brings you in and you kind of read the tea leaves, kind of plug in what they're doing, tell them your version of how you want to bring your vision to match theirs. Because in a perfect symbiotic relationship, it's not just doing what's there. It's like, how do you take that and amplify? I was listening to a thing earlier today on Rob Reiner, and he was talking about their first project they did. Stand By Me was one of the first projects from Stephen King. And when they showed it to Stephen King, he couldn't answer right away, left, came back in and said, this is the best adaptation of one of my works. And from that point on, they could, worked on several projects, but he said that one of the pivots in the movie was in the book, River Phoenix's character is the one that, presented the gun. Whereas in the movie, they realized the character's journey was Will Wheaton's. And that's why, and Stephen King was like, I should have known that. That's what it should have been in the book, and you got it. And so when the right people fall in, it's you take something that's really great and you amplify it. So I think from a director standpoint, you're finding what is the thing, what are the themes, or what's the journey, what's the story, but then how do you, within the context of what's there. Whereas a producer, I feel what you're doing is you're finding, okay, this story, this book, this whatever needs to get out there. And either you don't think you're right for it, or, you're at a level where, okay, well, I need a director with a name to get this made or whatnot. And then it's your job to be like, I know that this is my egg and I don't want someone to crack it. So I got to give it to somebody that can actually hatch it and bring it into something, better than what it would be. And so you're kind of almost like, you're almost taking that, like almost like a detective. You're kind of reading all the people that you meet and being like, I think the way that you're looking at that could work. And be like, you're telling me that, but I think you're going to pivot. And so you're trying to read the tea leaves because there is no science to this. It's kind of like, it's in your gut, but it's rooted in something. And I think as a producer, your job is to make sure that you pick the right people, but then know when you can step back. And then when you have to be like, hey, remember when I hired you? It's because we need to do this. Don't go down that road. And you're kind of, herding the chickens or the flocks.
Cats.
I don't think it's successful in herding cats. So
Yeah.
I think that if you're herding cats, the producing job has failed because the cats won't go where you want them to.
I don't like cats. Don't fuck with cats, just to be clear. I don't, but...
Send all comments.
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, well, you don't
All
like
cat
cats.
lovers to go.
Yeah, please, all of you pussy lovers, get in the comments. And for the benefit of my dear brother here, who... thank you for coming tonight. As we'll probably reference several times throughout the show, the roads are bad because it's upper Midwest.
Yeah.
We're filmmakers. This is a debate show.
Well, it was spring over the weekend, and then winter came back.
It was
just today, yeah.
Winter has come today. So you missed our earlier conversation. And if you could use this as a way to set up when you first realized you were a full-time filmmaker as like a job.
When did I realize that was...
So you were saying we were talking about school.
Yeah.
I'm from a college town from when I got separated from my brothers and was raised by my adopted parents. And we were talking about how, college, maybe not needed. And that was kind of your philosophy in contrast to your mother's. And then at some point you were able to build a career where, hey, I'm working full time in a very large industry with the third largest export from this country, as you pointed out so rightly.
Wait, can I ask
before we
something
got on the show.
first? Did your mom want you to be a filmmaker, or did she have
No.
other ideas? Okay, what did she
No.
want you to do?
My mom just wanted me to go to college and
Oh.
get a safe job to make sure that I could support myself.
Yeah, that's
Which
smart.
is not by its nature a bad thing. But one thing, just taking even my mom as a separate entity, being from the Midwest, what Midwesterners don't understand is intellectual property. Most of the people that have made money and been successful, you make a widget, you invent something for medical. This idea that like, I'm going to write a story that the world's going to fall in love with and we're going to make millions of dollars. That's like a Silicon Valley thing. You can write code, that makes sense. LA, that makes sense. So like, there isn't really a history. So when people say, I'm going to just go out and create things and there's money to be had in that, I think that's a pretty big leap for a lot of people in the Midwest, just because we don't have a lot of industries that makes sense. It doesn't scale that way. So, as much as my mom didn't understand what I wanted to do, I didn't understand what I do. I have a very similar story to a lot of other directors, that one day we woke up and we just wanted to be a director. I happened to do that when I was 10 years old. I didn't know what a director was. I have no idea why that day I woke up. I wasn't really an avid movie watcher. I wasn't, at the time, there wasn't things like DVDs. So I remember going to the library, which also I did not read very much. So my mom was already curious, like, wait, you're going to read a book? So I found a book on directing, but it wasn't in the library. I had to have it shipped from somewhere. And it took, I think, like 4 weeks. And when it arrived, the book was like twice the size of the Bible. It was huge. My mom was like, you have trouble trying to have attention span of reading things like Dr. Seuss? I don't know if this is going to be it. And I remember, I think it took me 2 days to read cover to cover.
Wow.
And I started putting quotes on the wall, and it was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And it was just weird that I knew that beforehand. It was reinforced. And then I inherently started to understand the medium, when you're watching stuff and then you point stuff out, people are like,
What book was this?
The book is called The Name Above the Title, written by Frank Capra, who happens to be my favorite director.
Yeah.
But just hearing how it worked, like, how did you work with actors? How did you, make something that was real? Like, there's a business behind it, but it's an art form. And like, how does this whole thing go together? Back then, the allure of like Hollywood, like, you go out and that's where you can make yourself and, you can become whatever. It was very, from the Midwest, it's exciting, but it was never about the fame and fortune. It was like being able to work with actors, tell a story, and then put it on a room and watch a bunch of strangers react to what you're doing. I don't know. There is no better feeling than that.
I've watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I can name one Frank Capra movie I wanted to say that.
Well, his most famous one you should be able to name.
Oh, yeah, the ones. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
But that's not my favorite Frank Capra. I prefer the political intrigue of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Well, one might say that I love that movie because also Jimmy Stewart's my favorite actor. But that movie, I think people I think that's part of what gave it the name of Capricorn. It's almost like a feel-good movie that doesn't really warrant being a feel-good movie. I am that way. Like, life beats up enough people. I like the entertainment where you can kind of almost have the fantasy that, good guys win and people can be convinced of stuff as opposed to. But I think probably my favorite movie of his, besides It's a Wonderful Life, which I actually think is very profound, is a movie called It Happened One Night. It was the first movie to ever win all 5 major Academy Awards. And it's a screwball comedy, and it is almost perfect. So if you have not seen it, I would recommend watching that.
What keeps it from being almost perfect or from being perfect?
I think, perfection's hard to achieve, and really it's difficult. But when you look, in my mind, the only 2 perfect movies that come to mind are probably Jaws and Casablanca.
Oh.
Okay. I think that's probably a widely accepted way to look at.
A more modern one that I think is near perfect would be There Will Be Blood, which is not my type of movie, but like when I watched it, I was like, this is about as good as it gets. Like, the whole thing just works. And so, you have to tier. Perfection's got to be like, you basically can't do anything. So if perfect's here, It Happened One Night is right here. So it's pretty close. Yeah.
There's nothing I would change about The Dark Knight to make it better. I'm just gonna put that.
Wait,
out
is that
there.
your perfect film
whole.
then?
No, I'm just thinking of like the whole thing where IMAX. That's one of the things I find interesting about you is I'll have to take a step back after this. Is that you have a movie review show and you've made features, so you understand the rigors of making movies more at the indie level. But then, is there any? How do you feel towards critiquing other artists' work in the playing in same pool but different ends, deep end, shallow? I don't know if that's a good metaphor.
let me start by saying this. I have other friends that direct films of various levels of success.
Sure.
It's very weird because directors never get to work with each other.
Yeah.
So we work with lots of different DPs, lots of different actors. But basically, we make up how we direct on our own. It's a very weird kind of silo. Most people run into other people doing stuff. We don't. So when we sit down and talk as fellow directors, we're kind of like, when we hear something, we're like, oh, that's a good idea. Or like, oh, I never thought of that because I do it this way or whatnot. But it's always funny, my director friends that are also working, we both realize that it's really hard to do stuff. So there's a certain honor amongst thieves of like, oh, you've gotten something made. But we always have a quiet off the conversation. We'll pull right either before or after someone's premiere and be like, what's your number? And we're always honest. So it's always funny because,
1 out of 10?
1 out of 10. And it's like, because most people, like, they'll either trash it or they'll just be really friendly.
Yeah, 1
but
out of
director
10 's
to
good.
director, that we always tell each other exactly, we're like, yeah. And what's funny is usually we agree with each other right away. And sometimes if you're like, ooh, I think you went a little low, usually within a few months, the next time you see each other, you're like, I was on the high. You're right. You're pretty accurate. So I think there's like an honesty amongst, because it's hard to do and it's hard to get perfect. So on our review show, sometimes it's the, middle-aged dudes that get off my lawn. But the whole thing that we do in our review show is like, we want the art of film and the execution of quality entertainment. So like, you might like something, like I might enjoy something, but it's not a good movie. And then there's movies that are great that I don't really enjoy. But what we're trying to do is the actual art form. Is there something there? And I fear that over the last 5-10 years, the actual technician execution of kind of your run-of-the-mill movies is gone. So we still have a few actual artists doing stuff. But if you went back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you would have a lot of working directors that could execute a movie and functionally go like, hey, as a structure, as this, as how it goes, how the audience reacts, the actual visual language of it, it all works. And you're like, that's a craftsman doing the job. Those craftsmen don't exist anymore. So it's very weird now. It feels like oftentimes I have friends that listen to the show and they'll be like, do you like any movie? And then I'm like, I don't. And then I go back and look at the podcast. I'm like, no, there's quite a few that I do like, but it comes out because we want to set the standard and not always move to, right now, is it good enough? And you're like, no, like it's not. It's kind of like we want to keep that world record. So I think sometimes I come off a little bit harsher, but I just want, it's like going to a museum. There's lots of stuff in the museum that might be interesting, might be dumb, but there's like 4 paintings that everybody travels the world to go see, and those are what I want movies to be. You want them to be the best of the best, not just like a content library of stuff that you can go wander around. I want the good stuff.
I was thinking you sent what? TV?
TV.
Hey, but Ted Sarandos on The Town Today said, I know you're probably, Ted Sarandos is what's in shitifying movies. We'll save that for a second. But was talking about how to Tubi, you can upload a movie to it and make money today. So if your movie's good enough,
yeah, no, that's why I'm like,
and we know
apologizing
people
for
who have
making a
movies
joke
on
about
Tubi.
but it's like I couldn't not make the joke.
Yeah.
I should have made it about Fossum because that's like the new Tubi.
Oh, I've heard of Fossum. There's we know someone with a movie on there too.
Okay, you never heard me say that, but yeah.
No, I think no. Well, the person I'm talking about was
you
like
go and like wander around, like if I'm putting on something on the TV,
Fossum,
like to
Something in the background.
TV,
Okay,
but like,
yeah.
but it's like here's a bunch of stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm going to talk about technology, but I just need to go off on my brother for a second. So you're saying you pay for HBO and you go to Tubi and look at
for like background for like I'm gonna just
I
pass out on the couch sort of thing.
Get it. I would rather go to, because and part of this is Midwest. I'm paying for it, man. So I'm going to go to one of the ones I'm paying for and watch stuff there. I barely go to Tubi unless it's for the show or to watch a friend's movie. That's because they have it up there versus somewhere else. And I don't know. So the weird thing is that I found you through AI.
Okay.
I don't remember if I said
Where did you put it in the prompt?
I was looking at what are the other podcasts that are like Movie Baiters and saying, could you find them? Like, I feel like I would know of them. Like, do you know of any other podcasts? Like,
No, I mean, I know a lot of people are doing them, but I don't, it's like there's not like a database unless I go to iTunes or Spotify or any of these things and like search for them to find them.
Yeah.
It's like everybody that creates something like this, organically, they're going to like you or not, or you're going to spend time and effort promoting them. And, there's a million people out there talking about it. I started ours because me and my co-host, we would always get on the phone and have these long discussions about it. And we're just like, we should probably record these. And then we started recording them. And it's kind of like, it's not that we don't care if anybody listens, but it's like, it's literally like we would do this whether we're recording or not. And people, enough people think that we're interesting enough in our takes that it's interesting to hear, those discussions. But it's like, we both love movies. And we love when you see a movie that is well crafted and brilliant. It is like, I mean, one of the things people always ask me is, can I enjoy watching movies? Is it too hard to watch them because you know what goes on and you're bothered by this? And you're like, I could watch movies 24 hours a day and I can watch a movie that's bad and get something from it. I can watch a great movie. But when you find those like near perfect movies, like we used to talk about what movies would you take if you were stranded on a desert island so you could watch over and over again. And to think that you could have something that you could watch. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've watched something like Jaws. And like every time you're mesmerized and it's like you're watching it and you're like, how can you make it that it comes to life and I'm enjoying these characters and I still get like scared and I'm still like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Or you see a different part of a performance that speaks to you at the age that you are that it didn't 20. It's like locked in time, but yet it's this living thing that just kind of speaks to generations of people. And you're like, how are we not striving for that? And then they poke at people like that don't understand what we do. And they're like, oh, you guys are just out playing around. You're like, just remember when the pandemic hit, everybody came looking for our content. So this idea that we don't have value, we do. Did we cure cancer? No. But I mean, the human soul, humans are built on telling stories to communicate and to bond. And I think when filmmakers do it at their best, we do have a great effect on society. And so that's when they aren't done well, why I particularly get mad, because I feel like we have a more important thing to say in the world than sometimes we do when it's just done poorly.
I was listening to a news podcast and it was brought up that when JFK, the Oliver Stone movie, came out, that led to some sort of government action. He always drops his mic pack on purpose. It's funny.
It must be released.
I'm going to dump that one anyway. So, Mojo Media, that's your company?
MOGO Media. It's okay.
MOGO Media. Wait, and there's a different one out there that's website is Go Mogo, right? You're not Go Mogo.
No.
Because when I was looking, I went to your site through your social media, and it was different than the one it's not.
Yeah.
Nothing. What is your niche within the industry, or why did you start your own company? What was its niche when you started it?
Well, I didn't go to college, so I've been a freelancer my entire adult life. So, you always need a banner to do the stuff that you're working on. And as most filmmakers, it's difficult to have only narrative work. So once you started doing, commercials and you get corporate videos, you can't just always say like, hi, I'm Barry, hire me. At some point, you have to have a business structure, you have to have insurance and stuff like that. So we created the company MOGO, and that's been all the banner for my work. And then sometimes I get to produce my own narrative stuff. Sometimes other people do. So whatever banner it falls under, it's fine with me. Someone's got a checkbook. We'll go tell some stories.
How long has your company been?
I think it was incorporated in 2003.
Okay, so over 20 years you've been in business.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Do you enjoy? We're getting close to tax time. Are you set up for taxes? Like, do you do your own taxes?
No.
Okay, yeah, I can't imagine.
I'm a creative. We don't do paperwork. We are not type A organized. We call the bookkeeper, you call the tax guy, and then
Nick Farx does his own taxes. As Nick Farx, please check his taxes this year. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
You do your own taxes, correct?
I did tax, and as of last year, I used Free Tax USA.
Oh, yeah.
It actually is free.
And you've got a W-2 and a 1099. You do it, and it works. I'm impressed by that.
Yet.
I consider you a creative. Well, there's a statistic that if you make, not that you do, but if you make below like $25,000 a year versus if you make $10 million a year, you're 10 times more likely to be audited if you're making less money because government's like, haha, easy win.
well, I mean, you can't fight it if you don't have money. So
Yeah, that's true.
What motivates you to do like a stop motion short with an 11-year-old?
Well, it's my daughter.
Oh, that is your daughter.
Yeah,
Okay.
She's super, super talented. And so we had a blast. But as filmmakers, I'm infinitely interested in a lot of things. And I think I heard once that one of the best things you can do as a director is do something with animation because it forces you can do anything in animation. So then it forces you to be like, if I can do anything, what should I do? As opposed to what can I do under these parameters? And so when we decided to do that one, we had this cute little love story. We found a guy that makes these sheep out of, I think it was North Carolina. And he made these really replica sheep. And we contacted him and be like, cool, could we buy it before you assemble it? So I could take it to a guy to then make it like movable. And so we spent all this time and then we ended up renting a studio and we were shooting it in the middle of the winter. We had real grass sod that we had bought. And so every day we were cutting the grass. You had to shoot a scene and finish it before you stopped because if you took a break for lunch, the grass would grow too much and then it would wreck your scene. So we had all these rules, but we spent about 2 months or so working on that. And she won Best Upcoming Director at the Nighthawk Film Festival.
Nice.
Whoa. And she's going into the law, I know from our
Yeah.
pre-conversations. I think that'd help with making movies.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, knowing the law.
I mean, there's a lot of people, whatever she decides to do, she'll be able to do it.
So is your last feature was the Wisconsin movie that we talked about, right?
No, the Soviet Sleep Experiment was my last
That's
one.
your okay.
The
That's
previous one to that was the Lumber Baron.
Got it. Okay. So and the Soviet Sleep Experiment that had like Chris Kattan in it and stuff, and so
Correct.
you're working with name talent.
Yeah.
What's
so it was interesting because when we were casting that one, I had in mind my composer I work with all the time. I didn't know at the time when we started working together, but he's half brothers with Chris Kattan, and I was telling him a story how I think that really great comedians can make great actors. And we were going through this, and I think I brought up a conversation. I'm like, I'd love to see Chris Kattan. And he's like, it's my half brother. And I was like, oh, that's crazy, that out of the universe. And so when I was going through and casting, I reached out to him. I said, do you think any chance your brother would be interested? And they had wanted to work together. And it worked out. But we were going through, we had a casting agent out in LA, and we had all these roles. And we cast one of the roles, Ralph. He was just coming off Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So he's working with Quentin, coming to slum it with me. And then our Yev, one of our other actors, he was just coming off of Stranger Things. I think it was season 3. And then we had a hard time casting our lead actress. And so we were cranking through, and my producers were very mad at me because we were down to I think it was days before we were starting filming, and
Wow.
I had yet to cast because I was like, got to find the right person. And then I got the casting agent says, this is a lady from Argentina. She doesn't have, I think we had one role with an English. She spoke English, but she had a film that she had done that was like, her performance was out of this world. So I had a call with her, and I said, let's do it. So within 48 hours, we had her on a plane, flew her out from LA to freezing cold Minnesota. God bless her. And I remember because we had started shooting, and she came on set, so you got that new vibe on set. And there was some tension because I had waited too long in some people's minds to cast. And everyone's like, shouldn't we just cast someone local? And she came and did her first scene, and after we yelled cut, the whole set was just silent because she was just knocked it out of the ballpark. And then later on, everyone's like, I'm glad you waited.
Right.
So when you cast right, you sit there and you're like, oh, okay, this is why. And it's director if you find the right people in the role. So we had some great local talent, some great people from LA, and it was a fun project to work on.
And that was one where you were the director, not the writer, correct?
I was not the writer, nope.
Okay, so when the script's written and they go, we need you to direct. How did that happen?
Well, I was the one that it was based off of a story online, and we kind of found our take on it, hired the writer, and then worked with producers. I was a co-producer on it as well, but more the director than the producers. And we just it was the thing that you're supposed to do. You find a property that has a fan base. You go get some name, talent, and good talent. You put together a good creative team that can make it look like more than it is, and keep your budget low. And then you can go out and make something and sell it. So it kind of worked. We're not yet in the black, but it's the sort of thing where you're putting it together and you're like, oh, well, this is how this works. And you start seeing, an elevation beyond a bunch of friends, and we're shooting something, and it's like, oh, this isn't half bad, to like some people walk in, they're like, oh, this is a movie. And you're like, yeah, we're doing real stuff here. So it's always fun when you kind of put together the right team and then you get to play. But on indie films, you never get enough time to play, but that's part of I think it was Fincher that said, a director isn't, getting your shots. It's when you have 10 shots to get and lights going down and you get to choose 2. And you're like, oh, okay. So you got to make those hard decisions in the moment. So I don't think David Fincher runs out of time like that, but that
Not when he's doing 100 takes. How many days did you have on the Soviet sleep experience?
we ended up extending, I think when we're all done, I want to say it was either 22, 24 days.
Okay.
So not enough, but not like a 17-day shoot.
Yeah, okay. It wasn't like done in 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah,
No, that's good. When you did the one with Rachel, I have it written down.
Relentless?
Relentless. Yeah, where you have a basement filling up with water. What's the logistics around that?
See, this is the part that I like about directors is we have this idea and then people think it's cool and then other people got to make the cool come to life. That's when you know you made it. So,
I noticed you were a producer though on that one as well, so you were responsible for it working.
I was, but producing was finding the right people to execute. So when we had this idea, I don't remember. I think my friend. I was at a dinner with my friend from Seattle. We were having this conversation, and it was I don't know how it got to this, but I think out in Seattle, like there's mountains or something. He was telling me about this person that was in their house, and there was like a flash flood, and they like drowned in their basement.
Oh,
and I was like, from Minnesota, I'm like, how the heck can you get something to fill up in the basement? But it was like based on a true story. So it was just one of those weird things that stuck in my head. And then I was like, that'd be kind of cool to film a basement flooding. But then I'm like, you need a story. So we just went back and forth. And then all of a sudden it kind of clicked on. I'm like, oh, this would be interesting. But because I live in the Midwest, or maybe it's just me, maybe you guys don't know this, but what's crazy here is all these farms eventually build a new house on their property. And most counties make you demolish or move the existing farmhouse.
Oh.
So I knew that people are constantly in Minnesota moving, which leaves a basement. So I'm like, I bet you I can find somebody that either right after or before they move, because they're going to demolish it all, they would let me use their basement for a fee. And I sadly didn't find a farmhouse, but I did find a house on a lake that they were going to demolish and build a nice home on the lake. So we were actually able to, with the DNR's permission, pump water out of the lake. And we had it set up so we pumped 40,000 gallons into the basement and then would pump it back out. So at various stages,
it's crazy.
We had to,
How many days of pumping was that?
You could fill it up real quick. I mean, I think we filled the whole thing and it was probably under 15 minutes.
Okay, how many days of the shoot were you filling up
I think we filmed, of the actual flooding. Well, we did it in stages.
Yeah.
The actual like full on blast, that was probably a couple days. Then we had some shoot days where it was like submerged, where we're kind of shooting under the water. I think that whole total was maybe a 16-day shoot.
Oh, okay.
That one was quicker, but it was crazy because of the fact that, like, fun story for those that haven't heard this before. As a child, I wanted to be a director when I was 10.
I heard.
So one thing that was not cool when I was growing up is people who wanted to be in film. So that guaranteed you were a nerd and didn't have friends. So when you're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, telling people, hey, you want to come over on Saturday? I'm going to set up stop motion with my Star Wars figures. You want to come hang out for 12 hours and help? Nobody wanted to sign up for that. So this is my producer brain. I'm like, how can I get helpers? Well, I have relatives from Wisconsin, and in Wisconsin, fireworks are legal. So for the holidays, I'd give them $20. I'm like, bring me back some fireworks. And then I would tell them, we're going to shoot, but at the end of the day, we're going to do our inserts and blow up the Star Wars figures.
Nice.
So they would work all day so they could light the fireworks. So then I just took that as an adult and I said, how do I get people to work on this crazy project? And I just said, I'm going to flood a basement. And what do all young guys want to do? Oh, that's awesome. So everybody wanted to come, and we had the safety diver there, and we're going to start flooding. And like everyone's down in the basement. All the got ex-military guys down there. We're gonna do this, and the safety diver's like, all we need is me, the camera person, and our actors. No one else needs to be down here. And they're like, oh, we're gonna be down here. We're gonna do so. Yell action, and we had it rigged. So all 4 windows, we had basically these giant carts we filled with water and had release. So that just came in like God himself was filling it. The roar and the noise, and we yelled cut, and literally everybody left the basement, and they're like, I'm not going back down there again, because it was terrifying. So then it left the safety diver, the camera operator, and our actress. And by the end of it, just the sheer physical toll of being blasted by that much water coming in. At some point, the terror is real, the exhaustion's real, all that, because it's like you're dealing in this real environment. So it was interesting, but also you're standing there going like, we created this out of nothing because we had an idea, and here's this ragtag group of people on this land, watching this come to life, and you're like, this is movie magic.
When did you bring Rachel into that one? Rachel Weber, who we also know and love.
I met her, I think I was teaching a course, and we had to get some talent in for that. And we started talking, and when this concept came up, I knew I needed an actress for it, because we'd talked back and forth with the writers on, does it make sense to, who do we want? What age, what gender, all this. And we thought it was interesting to have the female in this. And so I was working with people in town, and she was known at the time a lot for musical theater. And I thought that she had something else kind of inside that you could watch. But then also when she was in danger, people would be like more worried. She's strong enough to kind of hold herself together, but also vulnerable enough. And so the arc that the character went on, I thought worked. And so when I started talking with her about it, we started having conversations. And then as the director and actress, we were kind of like shaping in like from stuff from her life or how it would work. And we created some of those scenes. And so it was fun to work so closely with someone that's got talent to kind of, we had the pre-pro time enough because we lost our window, because also in Minnesota it gets cold. It gets too cold, you're not shooting that. And then you got to wait for it to warm up again. So we had like an extra, we were supposed to shoot it one year. We had to wait till the next summer. So then we basically we were kind of ready to go, but now we really just, what else could we do? What else could we, use that time to just be free to think and create. So.
Sounds good. And you were gonna shoot 16 days and then just had to wait, 6 months to shoot 16 days?
Well, I don't think we were supposed to shoot, because we were testing, we found one location and we were testing it. It was a spring-fed water, but we were like, the temperature of the water, even with like wetsuits, it could have been like hypothermic. So we had to, but I think that was maybe like October. And then we shot that next August, I believe. Oh, okay.
So you had the whole summer to like test it out, figure stuff out. What?
No, because then we had to find a new location, because when they tear them down, they don't wait. So then we were ready to shoot, but then we still had to find a new location. So I can't remember like how far in advance. I think it was like the beginning of the summer, maybe around June is when we locked in that we could do that. So then they got their stuff out. Then we started prepping, because we had to go down the basement, scrub the whole basement. pour cement so that things weren't draining out,
Yeah.
kind of clean as much as we could. And then we had to build a special staircase that we could enclose. So we were modifying it to work for our means. Then because they had no power, we had to run power and, kind of make it a working set, even though, we were cutting boards. I have time lapses. We were taking boards from the upper floors to make the staircase enclosed downstairs. So we were kind of recycling its own building before it was all torn down anyway.
Nice.
And then fun fact is when we were editing it, because I knew when we were short on time because we lost time with some of the wiring problems to get it grounded when the water was a certain thing. We couldn't use generators, so we had to run a new line. So we lost a couple days of shooting. We actually took the staircase with us.
Oh.
And then I actually shot part of a scene in a studio, and then we needed a couple more underwater scenes, and we actually took it to a lake the next year, built the staircase in the lake, and then we dove and filmed in the lake, and it all matches. When you watch the movie, you can't tell what was faked and what was not, but it was funny because when Rachel and Travis, our DP, we'd be filming in the lake, and a fish would roll across their leg, and so again, some of the fear was real because they're like, "What's that?" So it's the fun part of making movies. You never know what you're staring down.
Yeah. What I didn't realize at the time when Colleen Krantz, Rachel Weber, and I playing brother and sister, that you were the one who had shot Colleen Krantz's pilot, Complete Bull. Did you see that pivot?
No.
How I connected.
Yeah,
Because Rachel Weber plays my sister in Paprika.
Yes.
And then we were watching that Nashville Film Festival when I
Well, it
met
doesn't
Colleen
count if you
Krantz.
call it out.
Well, I'm just no, but it's fun to do this with you. And I'm pivoting to him because he's going to talk about Complete Bull now. This is how you host.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna switch now. It's halfway through now. You gotta.
I'm the audio engineer. Well, I mean, he's still host too. It's just
Colleen's awesome. I've worked with her. I wonder when it would have probably been it's been almost a decade now. I started with her on one of her documentaries. We were doing recreation of period pieces. About the same time I was working on Lumber Barons. So suddenly I was being known as you can do the vintage era guy. So, but Colleen had told me about her idea for Complete Bull then, and I was really excited about it. And I said, I think you should. Don't try to sell it. I think you should make it. I mean, I feel like you understand this world. We live in the Midwest. These are our people. And I don't know if I inspired her or not, but a few years later, she called back. She's like, I've written the script. And I read it, and I was like, this is really good. And then she ended up getting some funding, and we teamed up, and we cast the whole thing. And then we actually shot it during COVID. And we were the first SAG-sanctioned production to come back during COVID.
Oh, nice.
So we shot the summer of 2020 throughout eastern Iowa. And it was so fun. We had such a great cast. And everybody in Iowa was like, you go up to these farms and they're like, whatever you want. So we get these epic, you're on this property where you got these rolling hills and drop off to that. And it's like, you kind of felt like, oh, we get to be David Lean out here shooting, in the Midwest. And it was just beautiful. And, it was so much fun. And it's always maddening because you get a product that you love, but it doesn't fit a form. So it's like she continues to shop, but we keep getting great reviews. But it's like, we just need someone to be like, I get it. This is a world we don't understand, but we like these characters. Let's make more.
And the premise is that it's refugees from, was it Southeast Asia, come to an Iowa farm?
No, so that
maybe I'm
it's what's weird. It's also thinking now, in retrospect, she's a little bit ahead of her time. But the main core story is what Colleen grew up in and around farms, and there's this whole switch from family farms to big business farms. And then there's the old traditional ways versus new technology. And she chose to do this world where this smaller family operated thing that does artificial insemination of cattle, which is big business in the farm world, kind of having that girl from the farm went to the city trying to drag her back, kind of fish out of water. And then you have this kind of contrasting of the, middle of America farmland towns that are dying. And she put this storyline of, because we have these farm towns that are dying, that the federal government instituted moving immigrants into these areas. So kind of forcing a mixture of kind of that traditional rural, white American with, different ethnicities. And so you have the backdrop of kind of these people who are all foreigners, but yet realize they're all kind of the same group of people, aka Americans. And then you had this whole farmland. So it's a very fun world to play in. And I keep knocking on wood all the time that someone's going to say, let's make more.
That is glass. Be careful.
I did kind of the side.
Yeah, you didn't see it.
As long as
with the actual wood, it slides around easily.
Yeah.
Let's close on selling some books. So you wrote the book on DSLR filmmaking. What would you tell yourself differently today since you wrote that? Came out over a decade ago, right?
I think the first one was maybe released in 2012, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that.
Like 15 years ago.
Yeah,
almost.
it's been a long time. Well, what's weird is it was an opportunistic thing that I had worked with a lot of people that had written Photoshop books or this sort of thing. And everybody said writing books is the worst thing you could ever do. Don't ever do it. But then they would write another one. And I'm like, why did you do that? Well, we, whether you see, except for book sales are dying. Like 20 years ago, people could, make $1 million selling a book. Then it was like, I could sell 1 million copies, but I made 20 grand. And you're like, is that worth it? It's money. But when you see how much time goes into books, it's like a
talk show circuit. I don't know.
Well,
you're on a talk show right now.
Yeah. Look, I'm loaded. But the DSLR filmmaker, I remember because I started in the industry with film. First projects I did with 35 millimeter film. And I got stubborn because I understood the power of film, how beautiful it was, what you could do. And then I was there for the first HD revolution, which basically said everything we shoot is going to look like utter horse crap. And so I'm like, well, the clients aren't going to if my reel looks like this, if I put this stuff on the reel, then they're going to think I'm not very good. But I didn't realize that people sometimes don't care about quality. There's just whatever's in front of them. So I had the idea of what this looks like, but almost everybody was just looking at other stuff like this. So I set myself behind in my career because I got stubborn with technology. But for years, everyone's like, they'd tell me, the new red camera this, the new that. And I'm like, it still looks like video to me. We're missing kind of the filmic aspect. And I remember Vincent LaFerre, who's now a friend, when he dropped his video, I had 4 friends send me the video. And I saw it and I said, that's it. That's filmmaking. And I placed an order for a 5D Mark II before they had the updates to have manual controls. And I said, this is going to be back to why I started doing this. And I got, before they had it, we had to have these special hacks that could brick the camera, and we were trying all this stuff. And so we shot a movie in Italy testing out these cameras. And so when I came back, when I was talking to my friends that wrote a book, I said, we should write a book on some of the tips that we learned. So it's supposed to be a quick thing. And then the publisher loved it. And they're like, you should write a comprehensive book on filmmaking. And I'm like, you can't. That's why we have shelves of lighting, shelves of editing, shelves of story theory. And just put it in one book. So it took forever to write. But then it sold really well. It went into colleges. So I've now met people that are like, hey, you taught me how to do this from a class. So it's really weird. The guy that didn't go to college writes a book that taught kids in college. So it's, it's a weird, the industry's weird.
You shot a movie in Italy and you didn't call it Spaghetti DSLR?
Yeah, no, I should have, but then that's too self-referential. They just wanted to have a textbook to sell, and I'm like, all right, we'll do it.
Because they call them Spaghetti Westerns.
Yeah, I know, but I also called it a terrible pun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm setting you up for the last question.
Okay, the last question of the night is, who would you recommend we ask to be on the podcast?
Do you want any part of the film, or
So as long as they're in the Upper Midwest and involved in making filmmaking, if any part, narrative probably.
Yeah. Bruce Bales, he was the DP on Complete Bowl. He's based in Iowa.
Okay.
He does all kinds of great stuff. Love working with him.
Does he come up to the Twin Cities? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not.
I hire him sometimes to come up here.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Well, I think what we'll have to do then is find a time that you're hiring him and get him to come around.
Reach back out.
I would love to get. I feel terrible that I haven't reached out. I'll reach out to Colleen on LinkedIn to go, hey, Colleen, guess what? By a random happenstance of AI, I had the director of Complete Bull on my show. So our show.
Wow, thank you, AI, huh?
Don't you love saying that into the camera every
Yeah.
night? Thank you, Overlord AI.
Well, I think, Barry, thank you for coming on our show. We had a great debate. We'll see you guys next time. Bye. Thank you for listening. For more JK Productions, find us on Instagram at JK Productions Team and on Facebook, JK Productions MN. Join us next time for another debate.